Welcome to Bartender at Large. I'm your host, Eric Castro, and as usual, we're joined by some of the biggest names in the industry. With me today, Laura Johnson, founder, distiller of You and Yours Distilling Company.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So anyway, you're with this awesome new distillery here in San Diego. I actually had the chance of enjoying it myself for the first time maybe about 2 months ago.
Awesome.
And was just kind of blown away. I went in there, the product's great, the cocktails were great, just I felt like the whole cohesive experience was just really cool.
Thank you.
And anyway, I'm gonna ask you a question now, and it's how did you get into distilling?
Yeah, I kind of always had an interest in spirits in a weird way. Like growing up, I'm from Texas, and so my parents were super relaxed, and I was definitely imbibing 21, as we all do. But I felt like I kind of had the freedom to explore and kind of drink within a safe environment. It was never no, you shouldn't be drinking. So I think kind of growing.
So you were doing research from a young age.
Yeah.
Yes.
I joke that in high school, when your friends are going to pick up another 24-pack of Natty Light, I was cruising the liquor cabinet let's make a cocktail.
Yeah.
But I just always kind of felt like I had the freedom to explore the interest and grew up with a really healthy, respectful relationship to alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
So it was always just kind of a bug in my mind. And then really cool, my dad actually took me to Cuba after I graduated from high school.
Whoa.
Yeah, crazy. He loves to travel, and he's kind of one of those where if you tell him he can't do something, he has to go do it.
Yeah.
So he was going to Cuba.
I like this dude already.
Yeah, yeah. He was going to Cuba all the time back then, and as soon as I turned 18, he told my mom, he was I'm taking her for a week, and so we went together.
Did you guys go legally, or do you guys
Totally.
do the whole go to Cancun and fly over?
Exactly. We went to Cancun, and you have to. It's this whole crazy process. I wish I still had it.
The Johnsons are a bunch of rebels.
Yeah, a little bit.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you have to get this thing in your passport, but it's a sticker, but it's not, and they stamp it, and then you have to throw it away on your way back. It was pretty cool, but had the chance to go to the Havana Club Distillery and do that tour, and so
cool.
just random on a whim, we were what should we do today, and did that, and so that was kind of my first dose of distilling and spirit production. Fast forward, I think it was the summer, I moved out here to San Diego to go to undergrad. I went to University of San Diego.
Yeah.
And it was
what did you study?
International business and economics.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and a minor in Italian.
It kind of implies the opening of the distillery. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
It's certainly helped for sure. And so somewhere in there, it was the summer before I went to go study abroad and went on a big road trip, started in Seattle, came all the way back down to San Diego, and stopped in at another distillery along that road trip, just kind of, again, on a whim as something to do. And then it kind of hit me again. I was okay, this is cool. The distilling process did this super intensive tour, and it was a very informative one where you kind of got a sense of the process, and I just remember being enthralled. I was so fascinated, and so that was kind of the first time that I was okay, this could be something worth pursuing.
Yeah.
No chemistry background, no home brewing background, nothing. Just kind of thought it was cool.
And how long ago was this?
Let's see.
5 years ago?
Yeah, about 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would have been 5 and change maybe.
Cool.
And so kind of fast forward again, graduated from undergrad, immediately got my diploma the next day. I was on a plane to go do a kind of master distillers intensive one-on-one course.
Where?
Up in Spokane, Washington. Mm-hmm. And so I did that. That was definitely an interesting experience. But after that week, I was just gung-ho. I was I can do this. If these guys can do this, I can absolutely do this, and I have to just see where this takes me. I don't know what's going to happen or where it's going to go, but I want to keep going down this path. And so I did for the next 9-10 months that summer after I graduated, and then a little bit into the fall. I just started, just kind of kept traveling every so often, and any course, masterclass, workshop, apprenticeship, anything I could find online or through contacts, I went and signed up for it and did it. And
oh, that's super cool.
Yeah, just really dove in head first and just made connections and worked them, and would call distillers up that I knew of or admired, and hey, can I just come like shadow you for a day or like work for you or like I'll pay you to work for you, like anything.
Like a reverse internship.
Totally, for sure. Yeah. And then it just kind of like spiraled, went down this rabbit hole really of like getting in the industry and just kind of immersing myself, and loved it, and just fell in love. And
were there any distilleries that you saw that you were like, okay, cool, like I want to run my distillery like this place, or I really like the way they're doing things in this?
For sure. I mean, like I feel like everyone, I mean, my favorites, like the people that I look up to most are like Leopold brothers, like Todd Leopold, and they're just doing such cool things. And like obviously St. George is like the godfather of like modern day American craft distilling. So those two for sure stand out. But also I remember when I was kind of like doing my whole traveling thing, just you know fucking around for that time. I went to CH Distillery in Chicago.
Oh, I haven't been there yet.
And they're really cool. So what really stood out to me was like their urban feel, and like they had this, it was the first time I'd ever been to a distillery where like production and the tasting room was like in kind of an urban like city neighborhood, as well as like having a cocktail program on site. And that was new. That was something I didn't even know. I didn't, like at the time it wasn't, like you weren't able to have. It's
not that common, yeah.
It's definitely not that common, but then you definitely weren't allowed to do that in California with the licensing, and so I was just like blown away that Chicago, like you could do that in the state, and I was just like, okay, this is cool. So yeah, that one definitely stood out as well.
So you went from, obviously you were kind of just swept off your feet by the whole act of distilling and the distilling process and everything, but at what stage were you like, okay, cool, I've done enough learning from other people, like I'm confident enough in myself that I want to open my own place?
Yeah, I mean,
you're like, I don't know if that's happened.
It never really came. I still don't feel that. But I did get to a point where I was like, okay, let's take a step back. Like, what are we doing here? Like, what are you going to do now? You needed to kind of figure it out. And I came back to San Diego, and, like being from Texas, I love Texas, but I wanted to stay in California, obviously, if I could. And so I reached out to every distillery that I could find on Google in the state of California at the time, and just was like, hey, I'm, like this is the experience that I have. It's not much, but I have the passion and like the drive, and this is what I'm looking for. I really, really, really wanted production experience. So like that's what I felt like I was weakest on, was like actual time on a still. And so no one got back to me. Like I couldn't really, even today, but definitely 4 years ago, like there weren't a lot of distilleries operational anywhere, but here in California. And so it was hard to find a well enough established operation where they had open positions, but also to find an open position like that they were willing to kind of take a chance on me. And so I had everything, but I didn't have a lot of experience. And I think it was, you probably like don't think of like me when you think of like production assistant as well. So it was tough. It was like really hard to get to the next step. And once I realized that wasn't going to happen, I just kind of was like, well, what do I know how to do? Like I can write a business plan. I had a little bit of a fundraising background from like, jobs I'd had in college, and I was like, I'll raise capital, and felt like I had enough of a network and like connections after doing like the whole traveling thing and meeting people that
sometimes you just got to take the plunge.
Yeah, exactly. And also like super fortunate to have a really supportive like network of people around me. Like my family's great, like my community's great, and so I just like was like, fuck it, let's do this myself, and we'll just like kind of learn to fly the plane as it's flying, or whatever that like phrase is. And
I don't know if that's the phrase.
Is it? No. Okay. Build the plane while it's flying. Is that?
But
is that
but I get what you're saying. No, but sometimes you just got to figure it out.
Totally.
And it's like, but that's the best way you're gonna learn, because you have to.
Yeah,
if
seriously.
you don't, you're done.
Seriously. And I just, I showed up. I remember I just kind of showed up to the very first, San Diego Distillers Guild meeting. Like the timing was perfect. And I connected with one of them, like just as they were kind of forming the guild, and just like inserted myself in the middle and just came to every meeting, and everyone was like, who's that? Like, what is she doing here? And just, like made sure I was there and like learning and soaking it all up. And
that's super cool. And let's say, okay, so you have the whole plan, you have the idea that you want to do. You're raising the money. What made you pick the location you did? Because right now you're in the East Village of San Diego.
Yeah.
And it's like, it seems like it's definitely up and coming. And I felt like, especially I'm sure with your business background, you're like, okay, cool. This neighborhood's good. In 5 years, it's gonna be even better. In 3 years, it's gonna be better. So it's like, what made you pick this part of San Diego?
Totally. So I always knew that the concept, like my vision for this distillery was so tied to like that urban neighborhood feel and having that built-in foot traffic. But in the state of California and in most states, you like for a production distillery, you have to be zoned light industrial or heavier. And so finding industrial properties in San Diego with foot traffic was like nearly impossible. And it was just, I really didn't want to be out in Miramar, like with all the breweries, like that whole business park vibe was just not what I was interested in. And I got really lucky. It just so happened that kind of around the same time, I started to really look for a place and like, go gung-ho into opening You and Yours. Civic San Diego had just rezoned all of downtown. Yeah, to allow for conditional use permits, which basically, I don't know the specifics, but like basically lets you kind of have whatever use you want in a way. And then it's also great because Civic San Diego views like distilleries the same way as they view like breweries or wineries. So that was super advantageous. And then once I knew that I could have my like the downtown location that I really wanted, I started to look around, and Little Italy for me was just way too saturated. Wasn't gonna really touch Gaslamp with a 10-foot pole.
No.
And yeah.
No.
And so East Village was it. I mean, it's up and coming. It's a little gritty. It's still a little like grungy. You've got some riffraff.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool. It like suits
People
the
forget,
use.
a lot of people who just moved to the city don't realize you're like 8 years ago, it was dangerous.
Yeah. I mean, I've only been in San Diego for 7 years, but like for sure it's changed
it was super
so
sketchy.
much. Sketchy, yeah.
Even
sketchy
if you're
as hell.
around at night, sometimes you're like, okay.
Absolutely.
Hey, Uber, can you drop me off? Keep going, drop me off like a block up.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's an interesting little area there, but I just knew as soon as I started to hear it, we're kind of on the cusp of this little micro neighborhood called Maker's Quarter, and it's just like this little, I think like 3x3 block little quadrant that's just booming. I mean, really cool stuff happening down there. And as soon as I spoke to the city planner that was kind of behind the whole Maker's Quarter project and heard what was going in just right next to us and kind of around us and across from us, I was like, done. Like this is couldn't be better. Making the decision to be in that neighborhood was one thing, but then actually like getting a lease was another.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
And you guys, I feel like you guys nailed the whole, like, it just feels so comfortable. It's such a like warm space to be in, and your staff say everybody's really friendly, and they're pouring good booze, and yeah, it's just a lovely experience.
Thank you.
And
that means a lot.
Speaking of the booze, tell me about the gin that you make, the Sunday gin.
So Sunday gin's my flagship gin. It's like so near and dear to my heart. Like this is my like first child, I think of it as. Around the same time I was falling in love with distilling, I fell in love with gin, and for me, both the distilling process, but also gin. Within both, there are so just infinite opportunities for creativity and to really like put your spin or your mark on the spirit itself. And so I kind of set out to make a gin that wasn't available, like this kind of profile of gin that I really, really, really wanted to drink but couldn't really find exactly right. So this is like definitely an American or Western style of gin, meaning, not juniper forward, like very much at all. It's there. I'm definitely not trying to like morad as anything that I'm not. Like I want it to be there for, the gin drinker to recognize right away. But it's kind of my spin. It's citrus forward. There's lots of grapefruit, a little bit of Valencia orange, a little bit of kaffir lime leaf. Then you kind of get the juniper on that second, third sip. And then it gives way to a really nice floral finish. So a little bit of rose hip, elderflower, raspberry leaf. It's just fun. I like kind of think of it as like a gateway gin.
Yeah, cool. No, I dig that. It's like I'm like kind of a gin guy. And everybody associates me with gin for so much. But it's like the thing I love about gin is like the spectrum is so wide.
Totally.
It's just there's so much. There's so much. I mean, you have things like like a Hendrix on one end, and then you have Tanqueray on the other, and there's so many. There's so many potential flavor combinations in between, and I don't
exactly.
And even now, it's like I used to think of like gin as like a spectrum, but now it's more of like a it's like a 3D map.
Yeah, definitely.
It's like something out like the Minority Report or something.
Triple axis,
But it's so crazy, and I think it's so cool. I love that everybody's getting excited about gin again.
Yeah, for sure.
So what's the whole idea behind the name?
Yeah, Sunday. So the distillery's name, You and Yours, just wanted something really like friendly and approachable and familial. Like, I don't know, not everyone, but in this kind of like cocktail culture, distilling culture, like there can be a little bit of like pretentiousness, and that's just never ever what I want you and yours to be about. Like at the end of the day, as long as you're just like enjoying yourself and like the company around you, that's what we're all about. So for me, like Sunday, I don't know, it just, who doesn't love a gin and tonic on a Sunday afternoon? Like sitting outside. There's just something really romantic to me about it. Like Sunday's my favorite day. It just thought like came into my head and then stuck, and I love it.
Cool, awesome. And then what's the, okay, cool. Let's give it a try.
Cool. Cheers.
Cheers. Yeah, it's like citrusy and green.
Yeah, for sure. It's like grassy.
Ooh, that's really lovely.
Thank you.
And the juniper's there. The juniper's definitely there.
It's there. It's there.
It's all like, it's not that, like a Navy strength London Dry hitting you in the face, but it's definitely there.
Yeah, by no means. And like it's very intentional. Like I wasn't, this was like never meant to be a London Dry style. It's something, something a little bit different, but
it's like almonds.
Interesting.
Right? It's like marzipan.
Yeah, I think it's the distillate. So the 100% grape based gives it like this really kind of lovely like vanilla-like quality. I think maybe some of that sweetness, but yeah, it's great. I mean, just honestly, like with like soda or like sparkling water, I mean, tonic's awesome, but because it's so kind of subtle and elegant, like you don't want to use a tonic that's like too quinine, forward. So,
but it's a lovely product.
Thank you.
It's just it just blows my mind how just like up by your bootstraps you are. I was just like, it's some way it's just such a testament to like how far the micro distilling industry has come in America over these last 5 to 10 years. Where someone who like 5 years ago you really decided that this is what you want to do, and then now you own your own distillery, make an awesome product. That to me is like so inspiring. That's super cool.
Thank you. Yeah, it's crazy.
Cheers to that.
Cheers, thanks.
Okay, cool. Now let's try this other one.
Yeah, definitely.
And this is not on the market yet, right?
No, I mean, we just bottled it on Saturday, so we've got 62 bottles available. I think just in 2 days, I think we did like a couple cases, so I'm not sure how many bottles are left, but this is just totally like a random R&D side project. Like wasn't meant to be anything. Like it's not even like its own label. Like it's just another Sunday gin bottle that I like slapped a sticker on. I was like, that's not 40%. That's
and then,
but it's a juniper heavy version of Sunday. So like
it's not the same distillate.
It's it's the same distillate. It's great base, but it's a different gin. So I did a run that was just a little bit too peppery. Like it didn't fit the profile of Sunday quite well enough, and so I just didn't I just set it aside. I didn't put it into the allotment for bottling for that batch, and I was like, what am I going to do with this? And I just happened to have a couple of Kings County used peated bourbon barrels that I saw like they were like trying
just hanging out.
I saw that they were trying to get rid of them like on their Instagram, and I was like, I want a couple of those. So I like ordered them, and they had been sitting around for about 6 weeks, and they're small. They're like 5 gallons. So I needed to just get them wet, and I was like, why not put some gin in there? I was hoping that the kind of wood would mellow out the pepperiness, and I'll let you speak to it, but
yeah. And then before I forget, I know it's probably better if I wait to ask, but I'll probably forget.
No.
Where can people buy this?
Yeah, so right now...
Even just a regular Sunday, where can they get it?
Tasting room only, and then we're available online now through a local retailer that sells through online as well. I'm allowed to say it, right?
Yeah, you can say it.
Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, Keg and Bottle. So if you go to kegandbottle.com, both our Sunday gin and then our vodka as well are available online. As far as in San Diego, only tasting room only at the moment.
Oh,
but
crazy.
Yeah, soon to change. We're just slowly starting to ease our way into distribution, but
yeah. That's fine. Take your time. Take your time.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. So let's taste this now. Now we're tasting a barrel-aged gin. You said it was in there for 6 weeks?
20 days.
20 days.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Oh, that's really cool. Tastes like butterscotch.
It's fun, right?
Tastes like a Werther's Originals. Does not taste 58% at all. That is delicious. And all that sweetness is just all what was left in the barrel?
Yeah.
That is super cool.
It went in, I took it down to 117.5, put it in the barrel, took it out, and then it came out I tasted it 20 days.
So it's pretty much Navy strength, yeah?
Yeah. Cask strength. So it came out at like 115, 116. And this I had laying around, but then bottled it just this past Saturday at 108. So this is 116. And then if you come in the tasting room, we've got it for sale at 108.
Oh, you're making me do math. I keep having to like divide it in my head.
Doesn't
I'm like,
matter.
oh, now you got me drinking, and
But
now I got to do math.
I'm really happy with it. It was like just a total
This
like
is beautiful.
This is
It's a really cool product. It's really interesting.
Thank you. I love aged gins. Like Old Tom is probably my favorite style, and when it comes to it, and I've always like been very eager to like start an aged. I want to do aged spirits all full stop, but aged gin for sure. I knew was like first up on the ticket.
And then okay, so now you guys hit the market with this, and then you and yours vodka as well.
Yeah.
Now the aged gin. What else is on the horizon for you guys?
Yeah, so in terms of like the world of gin, we're gonna do like seasonal gins. So a summer gin and then a winter gin, and the winter gin will kind of be my like take on a London dry. So for those people that come in the tasting room, they're like, "This isn't gin," I'll
No, yeah.
like you can't please everyone, but I'm excited to kind of try my hand at it because I mean I love all styles, and London dry is so quintessential, such a like rich history around it, and absolutely deserves a place, and so I'm excited to do that, and then get into Italian style spirit. So
whoa,
yeah.
By that, what do you mean?
Aperitivo. So
cool.
like a Campari, like Aperol style spirit. Technically, because we're not a winery, we can't produce vermouths, but like a vermouth style liqueur. So got to get around it somehow with the TTB and like cola approvals. But I would love to have like a full Negroni lineup by the end of the year. So that's kind of
that's quick.
Yeah, that's my goal right now. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But Italian style spirits, and then I've always been really interested in eau de vies. But the deeper I dive into it, and like the fermentation process and
that's
how difficult, how difficult it is to work with fruit. And I'm talking to a bunch of people and kind of trying to soak up as much information and education as I can, but it's a really daunting thing to start.
Like, the margin for error isn't very wide.
Yeah. And the equipment to do so is expensive. I mean, you've got to have like very, very, very meticulously temperature controlled chillers or fermenters, jacketed fermenters. So it's just like it's a big investment, both like time, money, and energy. And so I'm very excited to do it. I just don't know when it's going to happen.
And then I'm thinking in regards to like, say, like liqueurs, how difficult are the liqueurs going to be?
I mean, in my opinion, like not very difficult. It's, kind of, I'm not sure how exactly I'm going to do it yet, like what I want to use as my sweetener, whether I, use like wine or like fruit wine or just do straight up like honey or sugar or, something like that. And I'm going to attempt to start R&Ding them like through vapor basket distillation and a combination of like maceration. So, I don't know. I'm kind of like excited to see how it all turns out, but like some sort of mishmash of like pre-distillation maceration and then post-distillation maceration as well. And then our still has an amazing like massive offset gin basket, so it allows me to like basically mess with or kind of experiment with vapor distillation really quickly, so I don't have to go through like our stills. It's not huge. It's 1,000 liters, so it's a good happy medium. But you definitely don't want like 1,000 liter, 250 gallons of a gin or a spirit that you may or may not like. So the fact that the basket is offset lets me like go in and out of like recipe iterations really quickly.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so I'm excited. Like the good thing about the way that I design the still is that the R&D process, even though it's big, it's not like a small test still. It's still pretty flexible in terms of like nailing a recipe down in not a whole massive amount of time.
And then what do you have to like, or how do you know when when the spirit's right?
You don't. I mean, I don't think for me, like I know
or
when
liqueur, you're like, okay, because you're saying you go through all these renditions of recipes. How do you know when you're like, oh, this is the one I like?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, you've got to just like stick to your like guns and intuition and trust your palate. And that's something that, you know, I strive to like get better every day, like just, you know, drink different things and continue like to develop my palate and try other spirits and really kind of like dive deep whenever I'm working on a category, like to go out and like buy everything I can find in that category just to kind of like see where everyone else is and what I like most and kind of what I want to emulate. And but the amazing thing about kind of what we do at You and Yours and how I'm able to take a spirit from like total R&D to market is the fact that we have a cocktail program on site, and like so fortunate to have some of the best like working at our spot. And so being able to bounce ideas off of them and constantly have them trying and tasting and like putting the spirits in cocktails before, you know, they're actually released is huge. So I have like my own little, you know, like think tank, like what do you call it, like guinea pig farm, if you will.
You call them guinea pigs, that's fine.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll be offended by that.
I hope not.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Well, shoot, I don't want to take too much more of your time, and I just want to say thank you so much again for coming. But I will ask you one more question. What advice would you have for anyone out there who wanted to break into the distilling world like you did? Yeah,
just don't take no for an answer. I mean, just don't let a road bump, like a speed bump, be a speed bump. Like if you want there to be a way around something, like there will be. I mean, there were so many times that, you know, I thought it was the end, like, you know, permitting or this or that or, you know, some like roadblock, and you've just got to find a way around it. Like if there is a solution, if you want there to be a solution, there will be one. So stay convicted.
That's good advice.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you again for coming on.
Thank you. Yeah.
Go to kegandbottle.com and you can pick up her gin, or you can come see her at the distillery here in San Diego. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks for watching this episode of Bartender at Large. If you like what you saw, don't forget to like, subscribe, or leave a comment below. Also, don't forget to check out bartenderatlarge.com for upcoming tour dates of the Bartender at Large documentary.